Hi, everyone. Welcome to the Global Retail Conference 2025, presented by WeSave, a transformative platform shaping the future of global retail and e-commerce. As one of the largest and most influential initiatives in the industry, global retail brings together visionary leaders to address the forces transforming retail, technological innovation, sustainability, and evolving customer expectations. Over the next few days, we will explore here on the One Business World platform some groundbreaking ideas, actionable strategies, and leadership insights that redefine commerce. This is more than a conference, it's a call to action to lead with purpose, collaborate effectively, and drive meaningful impact. So welcome to the Global Retail Conference. Kicking things off for us today here is Mark Boidman. He is a partner, head of global markets at Solomon Partners. His topic this morning is going to be maximizing revenue with strategic digital media advertising, and he's joining us today from the New York metropolitan area. So Mark, good morning, welcome.
Good morning. Thanks, Glenn.
All right, let me hand it off.
Yes, thank you. So good morning, everybody. Let's get right into our presentation. Delighted to be with you here. We will spend about a half of an hour, maybe even less, actually, probably 20 minutes, and then leave some time potentially for some Q&A at the end. The idea here is to take you through what's happening right now in the landscape with respect to media and with respect to retail. Lots going on, and a lot of attention around retail media networks, commerce media for sure. So let's flip right to Solomon to give you a quick update on who we are if you don't know us, or an update if you do know us. We continue to grow. We're almost 200 bankers, and we will be in 2025, more than 200 bankers, all based in New York, Chicago, Miami, and Tampa. We spend a lot of time with both media and retail. As it relates to media, you can see our team and where we spend time. We spend time primarily on advertising and marketing services, with a heavy focus again on commerce media and retail media. Let's get into it. So what's fueling digital media advertising, and what's fueling all the excitement and the momentum that retail media has today? A lot of that relates to digital media and the fragmentation of traditional media. So we're seeing legacy media talk about traditional television, radio, print, really seeing fragmentation, but also digital media is also seeing fragmentation. What does that really mean? What does fragmentation mean? As everybody knows, it's a lot different today than it was 5 years ago, 10 years ago, 20 years ago, in terms of media fragmentation. And what does that mean? It means that people have a lot of choice today, right? It's very hard today to aggregate a mass audience. And this has allowed for retail media to really shine, because retail media has proven, both in the physical world, but particularly in the digital world, to aggregate a mass audience. In the old days, TV used to aggregate that mass audience. So let's talk about the market that's shifting. So we're looking at what retail media should take share, right, from other channels. And what does that mean? That means when you look at the media universe, including digital media, TV, print, audio, out-of-home media, the only channels that we see benefiting from the rise of retail media is both digital media and out-of-home media. Just to clarify, out-of-home media, if you don't know it, that's media outside of the home. You can think of it as billboards, but it's also screens anywhere in the physical world. Digital billboards, screens in gas stations, elevators, airports, taxis, and the seat backs on the top of taxis. Think about screens in doctors' offices, hospitals. Anywhere there's a screen. Most people know it from cinema. It's certainly an exciting time in all these areas, but we're seeing again the fragmentation, the decline in audiences in some of these media channels, so TV and print in particular. Again, these are great times for retail media because its ability to aggregate a mass audience. So let's look at the fragmentation of media and the chaos it's creating. These legacy media companies are having to rethink their strategic priorities and their plan, right? As their audience shrink, and it's all about eyeballs, as we know, and as the number of eyeballs shrink for traditional media, both in terms of cable nets and broadcast TV, even with respect to streaming, we're seeing streaming hit new numbers, but there's this fragmentation of media again. Even on streaming, it's hard to aggregate a mass audience because there's so much choice, so many different streaming platforms, and so much different content available. and particularly social media and mobile. All these things are causing it, again, hard to reach a mass audience. Our view is that in the mobile world and in this increasingly mobile society, media in the physical world should win. And we'll talk about that, but it's in particular about purchase mode and being on the go. And we love that. So we talked about this already, but just these are the numbers, right? You're looking at TV networks losing viewers and advertisers. This is particularly important as you think about digital media, right? The rise of digital media. In the old days, again, people used to use TV as the go-to advertising medium. That's no longer the case, right? As audiences shrink and as attribution becomes increasingly important, there's a lot more attribution with respect to digital media. And we'll get into that in a minute as well. So let's talk about retail media networks and their ability to gain traction. This is particularly interesting as we think about Walmart. So when we think about major retail media networks, of course, everybody thinks of Amazon, Walmart, Instacart, eBay, and even Target. But when you think about Walmart in particular, when you think about their loyalty program, you think about how many people shop at Walmart. And what's so interesting, and we'll get into the size of Walmart's audience in a minute, advertising accounts for almost a third of Walmart's operating income. And that's incredibly interesting. When you think about revenues, it's still a smaller part of Walmart. But when you think about profitability, certainly the margins in media, and I say this all the time, when people are selling you and me, right, our purchasing behavior on a loyalty app or in a store, much more powerful and higher margin than selling toilet paper or other products. So this is increasingly interesting to companies in the retail world who want to see margin improvement and want to make more from their audiences and the people who shop in their store and on their app, etc. So this ties into our next point around reaching young people. If you want to reach young people today, it's our view that you have to reach them differently than you did just even a few years ago. When you look at cable news, even primetime TV, the average age of those users is, what we would call 65 plus. So what does that mean? That means if you want to reach a younger audience, you need to focus on other media channels. Again, this is why we are very excited about retail and the retail media opportunity, because if you are in marketing and you want to reach a young audience, you need to do so, again, with digital media and within retail media. So let's talk about maximizing revenue. This is interesting. When you look at audiences, and we talked about this a few minutes ago, this sort of size of, for example, Walmart's audience, both in store and their digital audience. When you look at these numbers, right, they far outpace any cable network, any broadcast network, any other media channel, right? In terms of their monthly reach, it's pretty powerful. Then you look at some of these other retail media networks and they're growing and they are pretty sizable as well. But this is pretty interesting. And this is why, again, we're pretty excited, not only by the demographics of who you can reach, both in store and on a loyalty app or online, is much more exciting than, again, some of these other media channels. So let's talk about in-store, because we are excited by in-store as well. In-store is still a very, very small part of retail media ad spend, less than 1% today. But what's interesting is that it's growing. And again, we think it's powerful in terms of the attribution, right? Think about when you go into a store, you see an ad on a screen in the store, on the loyalty app as you're walking around the store, and then you check out. They have the scanner data. They can know with absolute certainty whether that advertisement helped increase lift. They measure that, and that's pretty powerful with respect to attribution. It's also pretty interesting because when you're in the store, you're in purchase mode, as we talked about earlier. That's also a nice opportunity to reach a consumer on their journey and in purchase mode, right? They're there to make purchases. Very powerful to put advertising in front of them when they're in that mode. And why do we like this so much? And we talked about out of home again, and this relates to in-store, as we view out of home media as any media in the physical world. But this is some interesting data that came out from the OAAA, which is the Outdoor Advertising Association of America. They're noting here that digital out of the home is better than a Super Bowl ad. We all know the cost of a Super Bowl ad is quite expensive, and only the top brands or companies that have a lot of cash can purchase Super Bowl ads. What's really interesting is that if you spend the same amount of money in an out-of-home media campaign over a longer period of time, you will deliver far more value, right? Far more value, both in terms of impressions, reach, and frequency. So this is pretty exciting stuff. The numbers are here. And again, this comes from the OAAA. This is what backs up our point around reaching consumers in the physical world, reaching consumers in store. It's better bang for your buck, better bang than spending money with video to try to reach a mass audience. And when you think about reaching a mass audience with video today, the only really opportunity to do that is with sports. Sports, because most people are only watching television for sports, particularly young people, as we talked about earlier. Let's look at the growth in digital ad spend. This is pretty interesting. We continue to see growth. Digital ad spend continues to grow, and we don't see any fall in that growth. It's pretty strong growth. What is interesting, though, is that people aren't going to put all their money into one channel. There are a few companies that dominate the digital ad spend channel. We don't need to get into who those companies are. You know them. But these companies, they dominate. And, for advertisers, they want to diversify, right? They want to see dollars going to other places. So if we should see some shift in terms of social media spend, we continue to think that some of that will go to the traditional, but the usual suspects as it relates to digital ad spend. But there are opportunities for other companies and other ad channels to see growth. Let's look at a case study now with respect to Uber. This is interesting. So this ties into commerce media rather than retail media. When you think about Uber, they're not really a retailer, but they look a lot like one here with respect to advertising, as they're able to reach consumers that are part of their loyalty network and users of Uber with advertising. This is pretty interesting, both in terms of the size, but also the opportunity, right? The opportunity to reach consumers when they're on the go, in a vehicle, or even when they're reserving a vehicle, to reach them with advertising is pretty interesting, and also collecting first-party data, right? When you opt into certain apps, let's not talk about Uber here, let's talk about more generally, when you opt into apps, you usually accept the privacy parameters around that app. You agree to share certain data. That data is pretty powerful in terms of first-party data. This is interesting for all sorts of retailers who have a tremendous amount of data, to leverage that first-party data to know who you are, what your purchasing habits are, where you're purchasing, and how often you're purchasing is pretty interesting. And this is both in the physical world, but in particular online, which, as we talked about, is so much larger today. So this is what's incredibly exciting about companies and apps who are talking about doing more and more with their first-party data, particularly in a potentially cookieless world. So let's talk about trends going into 2025. What do we see more of? Obviously, we see more of shoppable video content. The ability to reach people with video advertising as they're spending time online, on mobile, is pretty powerful, and we are seeing a lot of people make purchases that way. Artificial intelligence is only going to help in terms of predicting algorithms around shopper behavior using first-party data, helping advertisers buy and sell advertising, all really interesting. In terms of audience tracking, also really interesting. Again, the ability to use data to measure lift and audiences is going to be pretty important, because today is all about attribution and does the advertising work? Are we seeing lift? So let's talk about in-store digital ads right now. This is also really interesting. We talked about this earlier, but I think what's interesting is new tech, right? Tech that's not necessarily new, but improved, right? In terms of sensors that are measuring people in store. We talked about scanners when you check out at purchase, making purchases, all this data that's being used and collected, the opportunity as you're about to check out to grab you at the point of sale as you're exiting the store, but even in the store, right? There's a lot of opportunities to collect data and use that data to monetize consumers. We're seeing a tremendous amount of success here, and the numbers are pretty interesting and exciting, both suggesting that people should spend more in store, right? We're seeing a lot of opportunities to reach consumers in store. We talk about this all the time, of leveling the playing field, right? Young people, they're used to shopping online. They share and compare with their friends. They compare with other sites and prices. Those abilities to share and compare, that's powerful in store. If you can level that playing field and create that same experience in store that allows young people to share and compare in an actual store, you're going to see a lot of success. Young people are used to this, and they want to see more of this. I'm going to end it around here now to say this last point, and I say this all the time as well. we know for sure that technology, both in store, but even with respect to loyalty apps and apps online, is only going to improve the experience for consumers with respect to retail. We don't see the same technology being a friend to other media channels, right? Technology is not going to be the same to radio, to print, even to mobile and online, right? To this smaller screen experience. People want to see bigger screen, more exciting creative. And that's the power of retail and in-store marketing, but it's also the power of retail apps and retail, right? Technology, in our view, is only going to help retail media, and that channel is only going to help out-of-home media or in-store media. This is how I would end this, to say technology is not a friend to any other channel. This is why we're so excited about the growth opportunity in retail with respect to digital advertising and also physical world advertising, because we know that technology is not going to disintermediate this channel. It's only going to make this channel better. And again, that's what's really exciting. So I'll end it here. For more information, you can certainly follow us, connect with us. We'd love to chat about this at any time. So Glenn, I'll hand it back to you.
Okay, thank you, Mark. Great talk, great set of slides. Thank you for your contributions. Uh, as I'm probably more old-fashioned, but I always liked billboards. So the fact that they're okay, maybe they've been rebranded out of home, right? OOH, right? And they're digital. I just think that that's fascinating. And to me, it's almost it there's seems like there's no limit as to where it could be, right? And you kind of detailed that, whether it's, I mean, I've gone past New York City bus shelters, right? And there's a digital billboard, right? You go, as you said, taxi cabs in the backs of seats. Pretty fascinating, though, on the retail side. Never would, again, as a novice, never would have guessed that a third of Walmart's operating income is coming from advertising. And again, you remind us that revenue less expense is what's important, not so much necessarily the revenue, right? But what is it actually generating? And obviously the same for Target. Um, it's a lot, as you said, it's a lot of young people not afraid, I guess, to navigate and click. Whereas somebody perhaps my age would be, oh, I don't know if I'm going to touch this or click. Give me the coupons to clip, right? I mean, I mean, I guess the train's left the station, right? I mean, you think of Gen Z and what's the new generation? They said Gen Beta, I think, is the next one up. I mean, they grew up with this, right? That's their expectation. So I would think that would only help matters here in the digital retail world.
Yeah, no, we agree. Look, but with respect to billboards, and you noted it's not just billboards, but screens everywhere. The billboards in particular, you can reach people on their entire journey, right? You can reach them on the journey from their home, in the parking lots, into the stores, and tie that all together. So these things act together; they work hand in hand. But the data around digital media advertising, with respect to online or on an app, can be leveled in store today. In fact, can potentially be rivaled. So we're pretty excited about that, but it's still small dollars, right? The retail media in-store opportunity is still pretty small, but it's going to grow. And most purchases are made in store. So if I was an advertiser, I would be spending more time thinking about how I'm going to advertise in store. And again, because you're person's in purchase mode, they're in the store, they're ready to shop and buy. And if you can take data and know what things you can target them with respect to advertising, why not do that? And young people, as you noted, they welcome it. It's interesting. There's a lot of studies that suggest, older people find this invasive. They don't like it. Young people welcome it. If they can, find something that's relevant to them, they're not afraid to share their data or be targeted with advertising in a way that doesn't annoy them. This is why, again, we like the in-store opportunity. It can be annoying if you're watching a video online to receive an ad, or you want to just skip right over it. But when you're in the store, there's a screen that has an advertisement and it's relevant to you. It's not going to interrupt you or annoy you. You welcome it, particularly if you can save some money.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, the save the money part. I was in the supermarket over the weekend, and sure enough, here's right. I've got the loyalty card, and a lot of this seems like it's tied to that, right? The retailer having the ability to connect with you. You've signed up, you've approved that their outreach. So here I am in the store, and there's the one price, but ooh, look, there's a digital coupon, and it cuts it by $1. the frustrating thing for me, and again, being a baby boomer, uh, finding the coupon for me was I wish it was at least on this my particular grocer. I wish it was a little bit friendlier sometimes. It's like you click into it, it's like 159 coupons. Like what? I have to find the pretzel one. Where is that? Right, as it goes. But I would imagine, you think about retail, right? Old line retail, right? It was all about the end cap, right? Or the checkout counter. Look, grab and go, right here. Here's why the candy bars were there, right? Or I used to work when I worked in retail all the way back in high school and college. I hated working in the candy department because the candy department was right by the exit, and it was all about that convergence of oh, I've got $3, give me some clusters, right? Nut clusters, and out we go. And now it's this living, breathing, it kind of follows you around the store. Almost, it's almost like a homing pigeon. It's like a homing device, right? As it's going out, it's like, oh, and I'm sure that's coming, right? Oh, you're in housewares, and all of a sudden things will be targeted to that, right? Or you're in electronics, or baby wear, or whatever the case may be. It's just
Now,
fascinating.
it actually they have the data that when you walk into the store, they know Mark Boidman just walked into the store, and they know what I like to purchase. So the screens as I walk around the store may change depending on who's actually in the store. You can also make it contextually relevant, right? So if it's raining outside, you may advertise umbrellas. If it's sunny outside, you may advertise different products, beach umbrellas, for example. There's all sorts of things you can do that make it relevant, particularly relevant in store, but even online, right? The online, people love online because they can measure and they can see attribution, particularly, for example, online coupons or online clicks. They know exactly who's lifting that product with the advertising work. The ability to do that in store is getting better, right? The ability to do that in store is absolutely getting better because of scanner data. Now, how do we take the ability to do that with retail media networks? In particular, loyalty apps are a great way to do it. And as we saw, loyalty apps with respect to Walmart or others, it's very powerful. Large audiences getting larger. But if you can show them value, whether it's through a loyalty app or some other way, again, very powerful, very similar to the old days of coupons, but nobody's having to collect the coupons to see the lift, right? It's all done automatically in real time, so they can actually send you different online opportunities in real time, both
Yeah.
online and in store, and that's also pretty powerful. You couldn't do that 20 years ago.
My grandmother was the best coupon clipper. She would be meticulous around the perforation, and it would just be beautiful. Funny you mentioned the one piece with that grocer. I heard the announcement, but I was already in the store, so I didn't pay attention. There's some sort of now they put there some sort of centralized check-in, and somehow it brings maybe stuff that may be further down in the app, to like the coupons, up front. Because I think at the end of the day, what doesn't change, right? We want to be efficient with our time, right? We don't want to necessarily spend more time perhaps in the store than we would want, but we're all looking for a deal, and people just love knowing that, okay, I got 2 for 6, or hey, look, 30% off came here, or I got the second one at half off. I mean as a society, I think that hasn't changed. I think.
That hasn't changed, but the ability though to show lift is what is so important. We spend a lot of time with companies that do digital media advertising in doctors' offices and hospitals,
Mhm.
and it's a very powerful place to advertise because when the patients are coming in, they sit down in the waiting room. They've got dwell time. They're sitting there. It's patient education. They can show them some videos and content that cause the consumer to put down their phone and watch the screen. You're in your doctor's office or in a hospital, so it's trusted content. So you want that education. The doctors like it because you spend less time with the doctor because you've answered a lot of your questions from videos, and they can sell direct or have directly relevant advertising on the screens to support all this and pay for it all. And pharmaceutical companies love it because, again, they can measure lift by seeing those locations that have the advertising and how many more scripts are written. And so it proves the lift. This is what's pretty powerful about advertising in this new world. And by the way, this is not that new. It's been around for years, but it's getting better and better and more efficient with technology. Which, as we mentioned, technology is absolutely a friend to this channel and to no other channel. That's what's so exciting about both the retail media opportunity in store. We call retail media in store doctors' offices, hospitals, even though those aren't really
Yeah.
retailers. But yeah, the opportunity to engage with consumers in these opportunities it's pretty unique today in a place where, again, you can't reach a mass audience anymore the way you used to.
Well, you think a doctor's office, right? That's an information exchange, right? That's dissemination of something that could be very important. Like you said, could then lead to a question in the appointment, could actually then have you then spend more time. Let's face it, most doctor appointments are probably 7 to 8 minutes when the physician's actually in the room. But then maximizing that 7 or 8 minutes because maybe you went through and you had that. Years ago, I was at the New York Stock, well, a long time I worked at the New York Stock Exchange, but I met um, ultimately a sports executive. But that was his original company. The family's original company was putting in those medical offices, in those slots in the office, all of these types of pamphlets and things. And it was just kind of fascinating to see where it's moved on to. Now you mentioned sports, right? Is still kind of a TV play, and obviously we've got the Super Bowl coming up now. I don't know what the ads are going for. I haven't seen anything on that yet, but I know the team's got
7 million plus. So
wow.
yeah.
Wow, okay. Right. And they keep I was as a Neil Diamond fan, I was kind of I was last year, I guess they had I think Volkswagen used one of his songs in the ad, and I said, "Oh, that what a nice thing to do." But I tell you, the future is just it's so promising when you think about it. With the fact that the information's there, they're able to act on it, and again, it's enhancing their experience. It's almost like, well, they always say it's the town square, right? It's the gathering place, right? This isn't 1983 anymore, where everybody's going to gather around and watch on television on CBS the final episode of MASH, right? That those type of mega watch events, maybe with the exception of the Super Bowl, just doesn't happen anymore. So this is really, you could argue, democratizing media.
Yeah, no, we agree. I would end on this. If you think about consumer purchasing habits in the last, call it 10 to 15 years, we used to spend an hour and a half to 2 hours on our mobile phones. We're now spending 4.5 to 5 hours on our mobile phone. So where is the time coming from? It's coming from those traditional media channels, right? From TV, from radio, from other places that we used to spend time. And so it's all about time spent, eyeballs reaching those audiences. And as you point out, Glenn, sports is the one area where you still watch TV. A lot of people have not cut their cord yet because of sports. And as soon as you can get your sports, and it's happening real time, and we just saw the announcement around Disney and Fubo, it's going to happen at some point. Sports programming is going to be, exclusively available in a streaming format. And so more people will cut the cord. And then at that point, television becomes, in our view, irrelevant. Because if you don't have the audience who's watching sports, you're going to see those audience numbers, shrink rapidly. And that's going to create real chaos, right? You think about in the US, 60 to 80 billion, but we think it's closer to 60 billion of television advertising dollars that are going to migrate to other places. Again, we think retail media is the perfect place for a lot of it. Let's see what happens.
Yeah, I mean, my daughter's 33 to 25. They have an internet signal, and that's it. No package, and they stream all of it, for sure. Well, listen, Mark, thank you for joining us. What a great talk, great set of slides. Thanks for all your expertise and your insights here for our global retail conference, and we look forward to staying in touch and seeing you next time. Okay.
Yeah, it sounds great. Thanks so much, Glenn.
All right. Safe travels today. Thank you.
You too. Take care. Bye-bye.
Okay.